This week on Blockbusted, we get into Doctor Strange. You know what it is. You've heard of it. You know what we're talking about. You get it. Well, welcome to Blockbusted. So, Hitchcock, we're doing stuff this week. We're talking about the movie that came out, and it's called Doctor Strange, and it's Doctor Strange, and it's a new Marvel movie. It's pretty good, indeed. Right? We were about to prepare for this episode, and
we were about to, but we decided not to prepare at all. So
we decided not to at all. You know what? I wrote a freaking outline for how we're gonna discuss this movie. I wrote an outline. That's a classic non-wing it mood right there. There you go.
Very good.
But no, we were sitting down to record, and you were about to tell me a funny story, and I was like, "No, don't tell me. Save it for the podcast. Save it for the intro, right?"
You don't even know what it is, so I'm still wondering how you found out it was funny.
Well, yeah, could be the worst story ever.
What is
That's
this?
True. Well, see, this is what podcasting does to our life. It goes. We're about to have an organic, friendly moment where, as friends, we tell each other a funny story and we have a good laugh.
Yeah.
And I say, no, save it for the podcast, Hitchcock.
Save it for the show, mate.
We've got to be fake as possible. Wow.
Good.
What's your anecdote? What is it? What's the story? Is it funny?
Let's see if it's funny. I don't know. I had the huge honor this week to express my rage about Suicide Squad to someone. It was great. No, funny thing is,
with the honor tears.
I know, right? We had some friends over last night, and they came over for dinner and music practice with my dad, who he leads worship at our church. So, they came over for dinner, and I was eating dinner. I was rushing because I had Doctor Strange to get to, right?
Oh.
And so I was rushing to get out, and of course my mom and dad are like, just Drew and Toby are gonna go see Doctor Strange tonight, so they're not gonna stay. And the one dude
and your friend said, Doctor Strange is of the occult, and it's Satan, and I'm not seeing it.
No. The one dude that was there, he said, he brought up how, how did he say it? He said, oh, that's one of those comic book Marvel movies, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, I saw some trailers and stuff. They've been going off, leaning more to adults now, haven't they? And he's like, was that just Deadpool? I'm like, yeah, well, Deadpool, definitely. And he's like, well, there's another one, Suicide Squad. And, before he even finished talking... No,
you were
said, No, before even he didn't know the name.
You were triggered. That's what you were.
Exactly.
You were totally triggered.
No, he started talking about it. And he was like, oh, it's about the government or whatever, and they recruit a bunch of villains or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, Suicide Squad. It's terrible. Don't see it. And then they were both like, oh wow.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Drew has opinions.
I'm like, yep, don't see. That was terrible. It was just bad. It was just bad. It's like bad as in, I'm like, just a bad movie.
I mean,
just
you said,
don't see
but you know what
movie
movie is completely flawless and should never be criticized ever? Captain America: Civil War. And they said, oh really? And you said, yeah, I totally wasn't paid off to say this at all. It is the best film ever made.
Exactly,
that's what you said.
Exactly.
I'm not biased at all, you said. And they looked at you like, okay, we trust this authority on movies.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Anyway, always fun to express your rage about that movie.
So speaking of movies,
what a segue.
Much the common topic on this podcast.
Really? I haven't caught on to that yet. I still thought we were
actually not
about...
speaking of movies. So I was just about to do this episode, and then my dad went to go get pizza. So he's going to get that pizza right now. So you know what? I'm putting some time constraints on this because I want to eat pizza before it gets cold. So you know what?
No.
We're gonna...
Dude, that's what a microwave is for.
Oh, no.
Nuke that baby.
Yeah, but I'm gonna try to get through this so I can go eat my pizza. But that said, we ain't gonna skimp on anything. That's for sure. Except the news section. We're gonna skimp on the news section.
That's just how humble Houston is. He's gonna reduce your guys'
I'm
content.
holding the whole podcast hostage because I want to eat pizza. Yeah. But so like I say, news. There actually was some significant news this week, but we're just gonna scoot on by.
No.
Did you watch the Wonder Woman trailer?
Oh yes, what an amazing trailer!
What an amazing piece of art.
What else, man? What
Piece
else?
of fart.
So clever. So clever.
That's hilarious. Yeah, well,
yeah.
you know what? It looked cool, but who cares?
You know what? I told this to my friend the other night. I'm not even going to get hyped for it, you know?
No.
I'm just going to, I'll see it, you know, and I'm just going to go with it. I'm not going to, I mean, they've just failed. I mean, that's what we said about Suicide Squad. It's going to be great, man. It's going to be this. Oh, it's going to redeem DC. Nope.
Well, so I was in the movie theater last night for Doctor Strange, and there were 2 comic book fans seated behind me.
Oh, dude, I love it when that happens, when they're talking about, like, nerding out and stuff.
Right, so
and you can totally
the first thing one of them
them
said was, I've been working on this fan fiction about a mutant X-Wolf with vampiric satanic powers. And I was like, wow. But no, they started talking about the comic book movies coming out next year, and the guy goes, oh, Wonder Woman, that'll be good, right? And the guy goes, that's DC's last chance to redeem themselves. And then the other guy goes, what about Justice League? And he goes, yeah, that's their last chance. And that's the mentality we're at.
Pretty much, yes.
We won't stop seeing these movies, so DC's just going to keep making them for forever.
Dude, the one issue I had with this trailer was the last trailer. The first trailer. I was like, dude, we just saw a lot of action there.
Yep.
You know, I think Chris Stuckman said this or whatever. And like, I mean, ton of action in there. And this one, there was even more scenes of action. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a butt-filled action movie, or we just saw every single action scene, you know? That and a lot of CGI
Well, and again, I think this is definitely a movie that's, you know, it looks as if it's going to have a lot of cool moments, you know, like Batman v Superman had some picturesque moments that looked real cool, were pretty climactic and dramatic. Remember when Superman and Batman were looking at each other and they were like, I'm gonna fight you? Remember when Lex Luthor was like, God cannot be all good if he's all powerful and whatever? Remember that moment where Wonder Woman dropped in and she deflected an entire heat vision ray with 2 bracelets? Remember that? What a cool moment that was. But what a trash film. No, like, speaking of the Wonder Woman trailer, or the theme, that theme song with the electric guitar, as much as it's cool, was completely out of place at the end of that trailer. I was like, what movie am I watching now? Like, what even?
Dude, even in that trailer, it was like full of moments, you know, like when she blocks the bullet in slow motion. And we'll see, I guess.
Did you watch the Lego Batman movie trailer?
Is there another one?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Oh no! I can't believe this.
It's pretty hilarious.
Is it? I love that. I have to go watch that.
Last couple of bits of news: Johnny Depp was confirmed for Fantastic Beasts this week. That's interesting. Nice. He's probably playing Grindelwald, is what the speculation is. But who's to say? Maybe he's Dumbledore. Maybe he's a charismatic, crazy, drunk Dumbledore. Be good. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting.
All right, so that's about it as far as news. This weekend, I should say, Doctor Strange came out, as you may know. I mean,
came out with a bang.
It came out with a bang, and it is set to open with $75 million or more this weekend, which is pretty great, especially for an unknown character. That's more than Guardians made and more than Ant-Man made. Really? So it's doing well. I'm predicting it'll go to 80 million or higher. Who's to say? But yeah, it's tracking.
You're not
really
a Marvel
well.
Fanboy at all.
Oh, I am not. I would never say Civil War is the best film ever made.
No,
it's completely
never.
Flawless, 100%, 10 out of 10. So we saw Doctor Strange, didn't we?
We did.
We saw it. We went to a theater. Night. We sat in a seat, and it was good, right?
It was.
What did you think of Doctor Strange, Hitchcock?
First impressions, loved it, you know?
Yep.
Had a great time with it. Visuals were amazing.
Yep.
I mean, of course, it has some flaws, some issues with that I had with it, which we'll get into.
We'll bloody get into.
Yeah, but overall, I had a great time, you know? I loved what they did with it. And, yeah, I'm excited to see him in Civil War, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean, no, Infinity War. My bad.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him in Civil War. He'll probably use that time stone and go back.
I know, exactly.
Speaking of time stones, this is going to be in the title, but should probably just mention full spoilers for the movie.
Yeah, good point.
Just so that people who clicked on a video that says Doctor Strange spoiler discussion are completely clear that this is a spoiler discussion.
I don't know, sometimes I just scroll through my podcast list and just click on a random episode, you know?
Yeah.
It could get a little bit crazy, so.
That's true.
Oh, gosh.
Do that with the Weekly Planet all the time. Anyway, yeah, I am interested to see how this discussion goes, because this is a movie that I feel like there's not a ton to talk about.
No.
We were having a discussion this morning about it.
It was a very deep discussion.
It was a very deep discussion because you had just woken up and it was 7 a.m. and you were like, yeah, it was pretty good. And I was like, yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah. And I was 3 hours ahead, so I was much more energetic.
About to go see another movie.
Yeah.
By the time I got up,
which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So overall, I liked the movie quite a bit.
Yeah.
I guess we'll discuss like ratings and ranking it.
I don't know. I guess you have an outline, so you tell me how this all goes down.
I'm going to confine us to this outline 100%.
Confine us so you can go get your pizza.
We'll not stray off the path like we always do at all. But no, like I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think it's got some strong metaphors and good writing, as we'll get into. I have tweeted that I don't think it's particularly original at all, but I do think that the way it's told is very inventive and very just fun.
Yeah.
It's a freaking good time, as some might say.
It is
in the industry. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I think it's definitely a worthy MCU film.
Mm-hmm.
I am excited to see Doctor Strange in the rest of the universe, which we'll get into. Yes. So what did you think of Benny Cumber? Benny Cumb.
Good old Ben.
Benny Cumberbatch. Benny Batch. I'm trying to think of a good... Never mind. What'd you think of him in the role?
I liked him. For the most part, I thought he did the character, best that could be done,
Yeah.
I mean, he portrayed, the whole snarky attitude of Doctor Strange, really well. He did his American accent really well, I barely even thought about that the whole movie, I didn't feel like it felt forced or anything,
Yeah.
Which was great. And yeah, overall, he just did I loved him as it, Of course, I'm pretty sure he was one of the ones that we'd predicted that was going to play. So excited to see him in it,
Again,
overall,
example of fan casting, perfect fan casting.
Yeah.
Always listen to the fans when you're casting stuff.
Exactly.
Unless they tell you to cast, there's no good joke in there. I can't find one.
Nope.
Anyway, Benedict Cumberbatch is one of my favorite actors in general. I love him as Sherlock. I loved him in Imitation Game, which is fantastic. Was he nominated for Best Actor for that? I don't remember.
I don't know.
And while he does kind of play the same character every time, he's always the arrogant, kind of snarky one. He's got a bit of arrogance in there, but you still like him. He's
man.
I enjoyed seeing him in this role. He was perfectly cast for it. Again, like you said, I had said a few weeks back, I'm worried about this American accent because, in the first trailer, it did sound a little iffy, but he pulled it off perfectly, and I did not notice it after a couple minutes of hearing it, and that was great. Further proof that British actors are always better than American ones. If they can do a good American accent.
Yeah.
That was what Andrew Garfield did in Hacksaw Ridge, which we'll get into.
Very nice.
But no, I think he played the snarky role really well. I liked that even more than Tony Stark, he was a total a-hole. Like,
yeah, he was.
For real. Like,
seriously.
Especially towards the beginning, know. And
but which I felt that tied into his whole character development great.
Right. Yeah.
Like his whole the whole movie is him learning not to just think of himself, Think of the whole world and stuff.
He was even like, Peter Quill and Tony Stark are both kind of a-holes, but they're lovable ones,
Yeah.
They're like, it's a kind of lovable loser. They're pretty charming, But this guy, towards the beginning at least, you were like, dude, what a jerk.
I know.
Ugh. But also, what I loved about him was that he was sympathetic, even being a jerk. Like, that is really what's interesting about this character that they did really well, was he was a total jerk, but you still felt for him.
Sure.
And when he loses his hands,
Yeah.
he doesn't lose his hands, he loses control of his hands.
Yeah.
But when that happens, like, I thought that whole montage, I guess it was more of a sequence, was done really, really well. And you see him, you know, when he first sees his hands, that's scary. He's totally distressed. You see him trying to write his name. That's really sad. His girlfriend leaves him because he's a total jerk. You know, I thought that was
definitely
really
did
well.
that. Did the whole hand thing fantastically. I thought.
Yeah,
without a doubt. Had some great emotional weight to it.
Yeah.
You know, with him not being able to do his stuff, and then of course with the girlfriend or Christine.
Yeah.
Christina.
Once he becomes Sorcerer Supreme, as some might say, or I guess he really doesn't become Sorcerer Supreme. We'll
it's kind of vague.
It is kind of vague because
he does end up as part of it.
He's the master of the New York Sanctum.
Yeah, you couldn't tell is he the master of that Sanctum Sanctorum in New York, right? Or
he is that. I had assumed at the end of the movie, because when the Ancient One dies,
yeah, exactly.
Wong goes, there's no Sorcerer Supreme to defend the Earth now. There are going to be big threats and stuff. And I had assumed from the beginning, or at least from when she died, oh, well, he'll become Sorcerer Supreme at the end because he's Sorcerer Supreme in the comics. But he didn't. And I kind of like that in a way, because,
Definitely.
like, he really isn't prepared for that yet.
No.
You know, that was one thing I thought about the character.
Fast, yeah.
Say again?
That if he did become the Ancient One, that'd be like kind of jumping to the conclusion, you know?
Right.
Just all of a sudden he's that powerful, you know? It's like,
and
what? Scott
Scott Derrickson, the director, said that he was supposed to have been training for a year by the time the big stuff happens. And I did feel like I don't know if I felt like he was I don't know how to phrase it. Like, after, like, he's fighting all these villains and stuff, and he's, like, you know, helping Mordo, and they're totally battling it out, and he's, like, the sole survivor, right? Like, he did feel like, oh, I'm Sorcerer Supreme now, right? Like, I'm the special one and stuff. But at the same time, I felt like he's still kind of the new kid, you know? Like, I felt like that was interesting, because he's very new to the scene still, and I felt like he still had a lot to learn, but yet he's kind of treated in the movie as a master. And that was an interesting kind of dynamic. But yeah. So that's Benedict Cumberbatch. I thought he was great, but
I think part of that is, you know, just like them seeing, you know, because it did very imply that he's super good at learning that quick, you know, because like he returns the books to Wong, and Wong's like, "You finished all this?" Or like,
right, yeah, which I loved about the character. I loved that he had a capacity to learn and change.
And I think that's probably why, like, that he was all of a sudden up with them fighting in the big scene, you know, with that, just because, you know, he had learned that, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, just imagine that over an amount of time. So.
Well, and that is something I like. Again, he's a very Tony Stark derivative character. Lovable a-hole, and he's cocky and he's funny and blah blah blah. But I don't know what that voice is. It's the cliche voice. That's my cliche character voice. But I did feel like one thing that makes him different from Tony Stark is that Tony Stark originally, in the first movie, he does change, right? He goes from I'm a weapons dealer to now I'm a good guy. Yeah. That's my other cliche voice.
I'm a weapons dealer.
I'm a weapons dealer. But after that, Tony Stark hasn't changed a whole lot. And now it's not as much that things happen to Tony Stark and he changes. It's a lot more that Tony Stark happens to other things and he changes them. Because Tony Stark is very much a proactive activist, right? I want to create Ultron to save the world. I want to do this. I want to do that. And he kind of learns from his mistakes. But Tony Stark is very much a person who has a hard time changing who he is. Yeah. That's what's different about Doctor Strange. Yeah. Doctor Strange, at least in the beginning, he doesn't really happen to things. Things happen to him.
Exactly.
Which shouldn't be confused with, oh, this is a plot-driven movie and not a character-driven one, which is what lots of people would say what I just described means.
Yeah.
But I just like that he had the capacity to change instead of being, James Bond, where James Bond doesn't change in any movies.
Sure.
It's similar to sort of Tony Stark.
Sure.
I don't know if that makes sense. That's what I have to say.
Very nice. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I felt like his whole changing throughout the movie was great, going from thinking of himself to the whole world, you know? So it's good.
So what do you think of the supporting cast and characters? Mordo, Wong, Ancient One, all them. Oh, and Rachel McAdams.
Yes. For the most part, they were all good. I think out of the best one was probably the Ancient One.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Tilda Swinton.
Tilda.
The White Queen from Narnia.
Yeah,
but she's bald this time.
No, she was great. Absolutely loved her character. Thought she did it great. And Mordo, I felt like was just a dude, right? Not very much development to him.
Well, right, and we'll get into this later, but I did feel like he wasn't a very interesting character in the beginning, but now that the end credits scene has happened, I think he's a lot more of an interesting character. He became an interesting character right about as the movie was ending. But like you said about the Ancient One, I loved her character. I had not expected her to die. So that was interesting. I thought she had a lot more depth than I had predicted.
Yeah, she did. She did.
She was very inspirational and kind of, a great mentor character, but also kind of funny and a little bit, what would be the word? I guess, just cocky or I don't know.
Yeah.
She's willing to kind of poke fun at Strange a little bit.
Sure.
And then the reveal that she's been using dark matter, the way she explained that and the conversation around that was
good.
Was very interesting. So she had a lot more depth than I had expected. Yeah. She was a good mentor.
Loved her as it.
Yeah. And then the only other major two characters are Wong and Dr. Palmer, ? I think her name is. Yeah.
Dr. Palmer, yeah.
Dr. Palmer.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Wong's pretty good.
Wong was fun. Would you say he's kind of a comic relief character, maybe?
Well, he's the straight man, in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's...
Yeah. He
until
does bring
the very
up
end
those
when
funny
he laughs,
moments,
which was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, like with Doctor Strange confronting him about, like, the single name, nothing else.
Right.
So that was fun.
That was fun, the Beyonce bit, and he's listening to the music and stuff. That was really fun. Again,
but yeah,
none of the other
big.
supporting characters had as much depth as the Ancient One, but he was a fun character. I'm looking forward to seeing him again in the sequel, and that is something about this movie that I do think is like, it did a good job of setting up the universe, but I also feel like I want more now,
definitely.
And my dad actually remarked this would make a great TV show. Now that the thing is, because you could have the Sanctum Sanctorum as the Star Labs of the thing, and then there, all that stuff happening. That would be, and there's new interdimensional threats every week and stuff. That would be fun.
That'd be fun, without a doubt.
Dr. Palmer, Christine Palmer,
Yeah.
AKA Night Nurse in the comics, but she's not that in this. I liked better than I thought I would.
Did you?
She's not great.
Nah. I mean, nothing a whole lot to her, you know? You just see her once in his house and then in a nurse's gown or whatever the whole time, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I thought she did a good job kind of reacting to the sorcerer stuff, and I did like that she's a nurse, so she's kind of trained to get to the task and, like, save the person's life without asking any questions.
Yeah.
You know, I like that kind of aspect of her. She's like, what is going on? But she's like, whatever, I'm going to, repair this wound, even though there's a spirit talking to me above my head. And I'm like, what? But I'm a nurse, so I kind of have to keep my eyes on the prize. So I like that aspect of her.
She was great.
Yeah. As far as the generic love interests in Marvel movies go, I'd say she's better than Jane Foster, but not as good as Pepper Potts, who I still think is pretty good. So, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see more of her, if we do get more of her. So
yeah.
We'll have to see where that goes.
All right, next segment on my outline, my discussion outline. We're following the outline perfectly. It's all going according to plan.
We gotta finish so I can get my pizza.
The story and plot of the film.
Yeah.
As mentioned, it's fairly generic, but
It is.
we can get into how it does kind of differ, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, generic, not really anything interesting, a bit, you can predict certain parts in it,
Right.
So, I mean, nothing mind-blowing, but like you said earlier, the way they executed it, the way they brought it about, and did was really good,
Well, right. Like it was the journey, not the destination, is maybe
yeah.
the thing to say about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I especially liked the third act. Is a lot of fun. I guess you could divide it into Act 1 is he loses control of his hands. Love that bit. And he's looking for a cure. Act 2 is training and learning all about the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting all the characters and stuff. And I liked that a lot as well. I liked how much training there was.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the exposition was handled pretty well. And then Act 3 is pretty much all action with them, going from realm to realm and sanctum to sanctum and just defending them and stuff. And that was a lot of fun as well. I loved how the villain was defeated,
Yes.
I pretty much from that moment where he starts using a time stone and turns the time back. That's great. And
that's another thing. We got the time Infinity Stone.
Yes, which we'll get into. I've got another
okay.
segment on my outline.
Probably should have sent me this outline so I know where we're going.
Probably should have.
I'm just gonna go off the rails here. Talk about everything on
off the cuff.
Your little outline. Yeah.
Are you speaking?
Nope, I'm not.
Speak, Hitchcock.
You want me to speak?
I quite enjoyed the time stone. I thought it was portrayed really well. We'll get into that in the next segment, in my outline segment. But how should we continue? Should we just get into the time stone? Let's just get into the time stone.
No. What did you think of the training? Because I did feel like the beginning of the movie where he's training, he's learning, was a bit rushed. Because all of a sudden it's like he's reading these books, he's just learned, he doesn't know anything, he can't make anything appear, and all of a sudden he's like walking with the Ancient One and like reading every book he can,
Well, so it isn't quite explained how he's like, no one says, "Oh, you're the chosen one," which I kind of like. But he is kind of treated like the chosen one anyway.
Sure.
He's like the Ancient One's special darling and stuff and whatever. Yeah. But I do like that maybe that's of his own making, He's just really good at studying and excelling and stuff. And so he just does that. Personally, I didn't feel the training was... I felt it was pretty perfect in terms of the amount that it was.
Which I can understand that. For me, it was just like it felt like just switched really abruptly, He's just going from this dude who doesn't know anything to all of a sudden knowing a whole lot, which I do feel like you said, his training takes over a year or whatever, so they did have to rush through that. And of course origin stories can get boring, watching a dude train over and over again, for a long period of time.
Well, it suddenly becomes Inception, where you've got to give endless exposition for an hour before you get into the dream stuff.
Sure.
I honestly felt if it had been any longer, I would have been bored, and if it had been any shorter, I would have felt kind of discontent. So I thought it was handled as well as you could handle it. I mean, it certainly was a little rushed, but I don't see it being able to be done much better than that. And I did like the kind of slow reveals as you first he learns how to use the sling ring and open up portals, and I love the bit where she strands him on Mount Everest and he has to figure out the way back. That's fun. And then he learns about the time stone, and he's making the apple go back and forth, and that's fun. That's really good. There is a lot of good visual kind of learning here. I mean, there's certainly a lot of people telling you stuff, but I feel like they did do a good job of showing instead of telling with some of the exposition. So that was good.
Very nice.
I guess we're supposed to believe that Caecilius has been preparing his attack for the whole year that Strange is training,
Oh, yeah, good point.
He's just sitting in his evil lair, and he's like,
Okay, so this goes here, and then you go there while I go here, and then we do this. And it won't work.
And
yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
I'm gonna make the city kaleidoscope when we do it, and it's gonna be pretty cool. I mean, it's gonna look pretty cool in 3D. IMAX 3D.
He's just trying to figure out how to read those pages he ripped out, you know?
Yeah, it is. Strange is just reading the language
I know.
at one point, and I'm like, wow, he is a fast learner.
I know, seriously.
Learns an entirely new alphabet.
Guys, I just learned a line. We're almost there.
But yeah, so I did like the training stuff. We are once it kind of kicks into once the Sanctum is attacked. As I said, it does kind of kick into overdrive where you go. It's pretty much all action for the rest of the act, and they pause a little bit. You know, we go to the hospital with the Ancient One. There's that nice scene. We stop a few times. He goes to Rachel McAdams to get, stitched up after he's fighting the guy.
But even then, he's still fighting him. You know? So
yeah.
It's like you can't really get away from it then.
Yeah, but
yeah.
So yeah,
definitely
it was mostly action.
A lot of action. Yeah.
Definitely.
But it worked.
It did work. I thought.
Fun.
I really would like to see this movie again because I feel like my thoughts aren't completely formulated on it. But I liked when they introduced.
He needs to see a movie twice.
They did do a good job of kind of setting up different plot points that then come into play. We see he wanders around the Sanctum and he sees the open gateways to the other dimensions or other places on Earth, and then later on he throws the guy through it and stuff. He sees the cloak of levitation, and then later on it comes to him, which that was fun. It had a very
that was cool
Aladdin magic carpet feel, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
And when it strangles a guy, you don't see Aladdin's magic carpet doing that, do you? You don't see that every
voice
day.
Again, eh?
The cliche voice.
The cliche. But yeah, the cape was great. I love the cape.
Yeah. What did you think of the scene where he's fighting in the spirit realm as Rachel McAdams is trying to stitch him up?
It's cool.
My dad thought it was weird. He was like, "That's too geeky for me." But
I don't know.
I loved.
It was what was weird is he's fighting the dude in the what's it called when they go to that form.
Astral form, astral projection
form. Yeah, well, they're fighting in their astral form, whatever, right? And it's like real time.
Yeah.
So she sees the light move a little bit,
Yeah.
But then, like, when the Ancient One and Doctor Strange are talking, it's like time stopped.
Right.
Which was
that's true.
I was like, is that something she did?
I think that's something she did.
Or, like, that's another thing you gotta go rewatch again, see if she says something about it. Because I know she says something about the time
She says something
time
about
being inevitable
she
or whatever.
spent years peering through time, and it always ends at this moment or something.
Yeah.
And I wondered about that, which we'll get into kind of the rules of the world and stuff, which is something I had questions about. But overall, I loved both the scenes with the astral projection stuff.
I thought it was great.
I loved it when she charges the defibrillators and then he uses it as like a supersonic punch to the guy.
Exactly.
That's fun.
That's cool.
Even though, like, would doing something to your physical body really affect your spirit? I mean, but it's their movie, it's their rules.
It works anyway.
Yeah.
I like the first moment where he's getting real mad at the Ancient One, right? And no, is that when he does it, or is that when he gets flung into all the different dimensions? And then he pokes her in the chest, right? Yeah. And then she hits him, and he goes out of his form, right? Right. So that was cool. You saw that in the trailer, but that was such a cool scene to see.
Skipping back a bit, we didn't even mention this. That first bit where he sees all the other dimensions and stuff.
Oh yeah,
is freaking incredible.
I love that. I thought it was so cool.
As you see his hands grow hands. That was trippy. And then he falls through his own eye, and then his eye is like a forest, and then wow.
Visually stunning.
It's like MC Escher on crack.
And then you saw Dormammu, right?
You did, didn't
you?
Up. Yeah.
Set up right away, which was cool.
Did you expect Dormammu to be in this?
No, I guess I didn't. No,
I mean, I'd heard about it.
I'd read about him in the comics,
before. Yeah.
Yeah, but I knew he was an enemy. So when they said Dormammu, I knew, like, oh, Doctor Strange. I know he's associated with him somehow. Yeah. But I didn't expect him to be the main villain. No.
I did think it was interesting how he was. I mean, he was essentially Galactus, was what he was doing, eating the Earth. But it was interesting how he was the boss behind Caecilius, and Caecilius was kind of just serving him. I don't know if.
Haven't seen that one before.
Yeah, exactly. Because of the two kind of areas of the two villains there, neither of them quite got enough screen time to develop. Yeah, although I think it works more for Dormammu because you can just go,
definitely.
Well, he's a evil being,
he's
galactic
an evil
being,
dude in another dimension with some pretty cool powers.
Yeah. I feel like that works better than Caecilius, who's supposed to kind of have a motivation and stuff.
Sure.
Where do you think Caecilius ranks as far as... We didn't even talk about villains in this character stuff. We're going off the cuff, off the rails.
Oh, no.
What did you think of him? How does he stack up against all the other Marvel villains? Who's he better than?
Who is he better than? Maybe...
He's better than Malekith.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like he was the best out of the bad villains. You know?
Yeah.
Like, he's better than what's his face from Ant-Man, Yellow Jacket.
Yeah.
He's better
good point.
He's better than
Whiplash.
Obadiah Stane. He's better than Whiplash. Yeah. But he's nowhere near Loki or Justin Hammer or, Zemo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was fine,
I need to go back because I think he did have a little more of a speech about his motivation. I lost my family and now I want eternal life or something.
Yeah.
But I just didn't really connect with that.
And by that point, I was just, like, so enticed with the action. I was just like, come on.
Yeah.
Get on with it. No, just kidding.
Well, and again, like, Marvel is a company that focuses on their heroes, not their villains. And I'm kind of cool with that. I just hope Thanos is good.
Definitely.
But, so, they fight Caecilius, final battle.
Yeah.
Strange uses the time gem and reverses time, and they're fighting within time, reversing. And, like, he throws Caecilius into a wall that then repairs itself. I love that stuff. It's like a person is, like, they had fallen out of their car and they're, like, going back into their car,
exactly.
Right?
That was cool.
Car's going backwards and stuff.
And then the building slowly coming back
The building slowly repairing itself,
Oh, that's cool.
And then they do seem to kind of, like, when Strange first does it, he's, like, reversing the whole scene, the whole scenario, and Caecilius is walking backwards, like, oh no, I'm trapped. But then he and all his men kind of jerk themselves out of the magic, and they're able to fight him within the reversing time stuff. That was kind of vague, but
Sure. I mean, it's got to be with the dark realm, right?
Right.
I mean,
because the dark magic, because it can do the dark magic stuff.
Doesn't, if I'm correct, Doctor Strange, he snaps Mordo out of it, right?
Yeah, and
Mordo doesn't do that by himself. Doctor Strange snaps him out of it.
Right.
That was another thing. Like, how the heck did Doctor Strange know how to do that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
He read some books.
Yeah, he read some books.
He did a good job
reading. He's been busy in the library.
I liked how Wong was stabbed and murdered, and then he came back to life.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
That was fun.
But so they're fighting as the city's putting itself back together. That was very inventive and fun. And then,
it was.
When all seems lost, Strange
and then
goes
he falls
into
down, breaks his little arm wrist, right? And then he's just like, without time.
Strange goes into the other dimension. He floats off. That was he floats off, and then he.
That was a bit odd.
Yeah, I did feel like the flying sequence stuff looked a little off.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't look like Superman, right? Mm-mm. Like, he wasn't, like, horizontally flying.
He looked like
someone that just Iron Man
picked him up and just thrown him like a spear.
Yeah. It was kind of like gliding more.
Yeah.
I guess. With the
we didn't see a ton of it.
We didn't see a ton. It did catch him at one time. Yeah. That was pretty good.
He got him, and then when he's when they're running around the mirror dimension with it all going Inception-like,
Right.
So we did see a little bit there, but
But so he goes into the dark dimension, and he traps Dormammu in a time loop where he will infinitely die Dormammu, he can't defeat Dormammu. He knows that, but he's gonna trap him in a time loop and die over and over again until he, until Dormammu gives in.
Until he accepts the bargain.
Right, and that's pretty good. And it was really comical at first. He's Dormammu, I came to bargain. Dormammu, I came to bargain. Dormammu, I came to bargain. And then it gets more and more, and then it gets really kind of climactic. Like, all right, this is great. And finally Dormammu gives in, and I love that. Yeah,
and that was one of my favorite moments was like when he's in the loop, right? And this was another moment of the development of Doctor Strange's character, right?
Right.
Like, he's in the loop, and Dormammu's like, okay, well, you can die, but you'll feel pain, right? And he's like, pain's a part of me, or whatever, And he's accepting that.
Well, and he says, you know what?
To save the world.
I'm gonna die, if that's what it takes. I'm gonna die over and over until you take the bargain or whatever.
Yeah,
and I felt like. And I kind of butchered that line. It was a really good line, I thought.
It was.
And I don't remember it exactly, but it was a great line. And it was very spiritual, which we'll get into in a minute. But yeah, I love that bit. It doesn't quite make sense because they're both
Doesn't have to, man. It's time.
Yeah.
Come on. But they did set it up, when Doctor Strange first tries the time gem. They're like, "What are you doing? You could have created a time loop, an infinite loop.
Yeah.
Do the same thing over." That's what Mordo says. So that was a cool setup because at least that they could do that.
Yeah.
And then when he did do like, oh, okay, he can do that. Which that was cool. I like that.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the magic here. That was what I wanted to kind of get into, and the multiverse itself.
Following the outline.
Obviously, this is the most kind of magic-oriented Marvel movie we've ever had. Like Thor was magic, but it was science mainly. Like he was like, science is just magic we don't understand yet, and this is like straight up magic. And we had a lot of like multiverse stuff. It was like Ant-Man quantum realm, but even more than that, and that was just really cool. It wasn't a parallel universe situation, but it was different dimensions. Yeah.
Speaking of Ant-Man real quick, I was, when Ant-Man, he goes to a subatomic,
Yeah.
I thought for a minute in the very beginning when he's going through all the different dimensions that maybe he'd go through that dimension, the subatomic dimension, which would have been cool to see, a little really connection there. Yeah. So, but anyway, sidetrack.
But yeah, how those things were seen. Maybe he could have saved Wasp from the other dimension. That would be cool. How they were portrayed was really trippy. It reminded me of Phineas and Ferb across the second dimension when they went through all those dimensions. And I loved that. Let's talk about the magic. So, let's. Obviously, it doesn't have a ton of rules. Mm-hmm. It's fairly vague. But at the same time, I like that they kind of appreciate, they just go, look, you're a movie audience. You get how magic works. And I liked that they created weapons out of the orange kind of energy, and Strange isn't fully experienced yet when he fights Caecilius for the first time. So he's kind of like
still flickering out and stuff.
Well, right, and he's using that whip as this is my only thing I know how to do, so I'm gonna keep using it. Which is what many of us
got
would do.
your weird glass swords, and I'm gonna beat you with
swords.
my
yeah. I loved this idea of the mirror dimension. Because it did give them a great reason for, so we can mess with the world and it won't affect people.
Yeah, that was cool.
And all you'll get is a Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah.
Is that Mirror Stan Lee or?
Oh.
But yeah, when they go into the mirror dimension for the New York bit, that's fun as heck.
It is.
Kaleidoscope, and it gets overwhelming. They're falling, and you see the vast expanse of them falling through it, and you're like, oh my gosh, how are they gonna stop this? Because
that scene, just to if you could have seen that in 3D IMAX, that would have been whoa, that would have been so cool.
Well, and
fantastic scene.
They're gonna die for sure if the Ancient One hadn't come, because you're seeing them tumbling through, and Caecilius is just creating this infinite New York that's folding in on itself, and you're like, there's no way for them to beat this. And so the Ancient One is the one to save them, and that's a good way to get out of it, because I was like, I like that it showcased Caecilius' power there. and kind of stacked the odds against them, you know.
Yeah.
And that kind of kicks off the third act, I guess.
Does,
I'd expected the New York battle to be at the end, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good twist there.
Good twist there.
We didn't see all the action.
We didn't see all the action.
And what was cool is we didn't get any of the Dormammu stuff, you know, in that dimension.
Yeah.
No trailers or anything. We got one picture maybe.
Yeah.
You know, so that was cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. Magic was great in this. Loved it.
Is there any other magic stuff we're talking about that was...
I liked how they each had... What did they call it?
Artifacts?
Their own object. Like, Mordo had the boots, you know?
Right. Well, he had the staff of...
Did he? But he had the boots, too. Didn't he?
I think he said boots, and they showed boots, and that was confusing, but I think he
then it showed him, like, when they're in New York, that's how he would land, you know? Doctor Strange would use the levitation cloak, and then he'd kind of run.
Oh.
You know, was that... I don't know.
I didn't know that.
I don't know. I thought it was just... I thought that was part of his artifact. But
yeah.
Also, he did have the staff. But
the staff of the Living Tribunal, they say, which is a Marvel character.
I was like, oh. That is interesting.
Well, that's a character I remember vaguely, but I don't really know who he is.
Exactly. No. But yeah, that was cool. I like the whole having your own artifact, which was cool. And of course, Doctor Strange gets the cloak, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was cool. Without a doubt.
Is there anything else? I think that's about it. Oh, the time travel stuff. The only thing
travel.
As I predicted
really
a few weeks ago.
Time travel though.
Right, exactly. It was more of rewinding time and kind of taking specific moments in time, or even like objects. Like he just does it to the apple at that one point.
Yeah, and he does it to the book, repairing the page in the book.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Which makes you go, why didn't they just do that to the book?
I know, exactly.
Get the pages back. But yeah, I did like that it didn't open up the possibility of like traveling through time and stuff, because that would have made things way too confusing.
Yeah.
When he traps Dormammu in a time loop, they both retain their memories, and it becomes like deja vu. Versus if it were truly a time loop, each time they'd forget what happened. But you know,
kind of like Age of Tomorrow, though. You know?
Yeah, kind of like that. So
he dies and he wakes up. So.
I loved that was the way he defeated a villain. That was just so fun and creative and inventive, you know?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
But so the magic thing is a good time to open up this kind of discussion that I just wanted to talk about. Was that, and it's on the outline.
Oh, here we go.
Was that this movie is such a good Christian, it's just got a lot of great Christian themes and motifs.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And as a Christian, I see that. I'm curious to see if people who weren't Christians would see that. The director, Scott Derrickson, is a Christian. He's also directed horror movies because he likes that they deal with spiritual stuff in a way that's accessible. But yeah, it obviously had a ton of great metaphors. The bit that we were talking about a few minutes ago, the line where he says, I will die over and over again to, you know, save them from you or something.
Save the earth,
was exactly a Jesus line. And the whole debate between like rules versus no rules, which is what kind of takes Mordo down, I thought was very biblical because, you know, Pharisees preached the law and Jesus preached freedom. You know, Jesus preached, you know, a life of freedom. And, you know, obviously the Ancient One was like, yo, we need to use this stuff with care. But I liked that her and Strange's approach were a little more liberal with that stuff and was a little bit more freedom-based, whereas Mordo was kind of like a Pharisee, kind of like, we need to keep to the law.
You gotta stick to the law, yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, he was understandable, you know?
Yeah.
And I liked that. And then, obviously, there's the idea of like a spiritual realm where there's spirits battling, you know, outside the normal realm and stuff. Yeah, there's the idea of him submitting. He has to submit to the power of the universe and stuff in order to fully connect with it, and that's obviously very biblical.
And there's Caecilius and Dormammu, you know, where Dormammu tempts tongue twister there. Yeah, he tempts him to like, oh, if you follow me and do what I say, eternal life. Yeah, you know.
Well, and then they do spend eternal life in the place of their follower, as you know, people who follow Satan they spend eternal life in hell.
Yeah.
Just like, so, definitely had some great spiritual metaphors there.
It did.
And as I said, I would be curious to see how a non-Christian would view that. But it's definitely very deliberate on Scott Derrickson's part. And I thought it was done pretty subtly for the most part. And I liked that a lot.
Yeah, what I liked is, you had mentioned how, like, Doctor Strange, at the very end, he has, like Jesus moment, right?
Right.
But then also, the Ancient One, at the beginning of the film, has a Jesus moment as well,
What's that?
So you can't really... It's when he first comes to the place, and he's talking to the dude with the beard. Like, he's the Ancient One, and there's the Ancient One serving him tea, and he says something to the Ancient One, and she's like, "You're welcome." And he turns, and she's, like, serving him, which is what Jesus does. He serves his disciples, right?
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool how they just, like, they gave each character a little moment,
Well, and
so
at first I likened the Ancient One to God throughout most of the movie, and I was like, okay, so there's a God character, but she dies, and God doesn't die. So,
and she confides herself with the
dark stuff.
Dark realm.
Which you could argue isn't really a bad thing she was doing, but it really depends. But after the movie was finished, I likened her more to the John the Baptist, really, as a mentor to Jesus and as a kind of, guide, but still a flawed person and still, very spiritual, but still flawed. And I did think she was a great example of that character. So, for non-religious people, you can skip ahead a little. Now we're about done with that. Let's see.
Done with that. Probably should have said that at the beginning.
Probably should have said, if you're triggered by the trigger.
You know what? They really should put the rules at the beginning,
That was pretty good. Yeah.
That whole running
at the
joke.
Beginning of the book. Action sequences, we've kind of discussed this, but I thought they were great. Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. The hand-to-hand combat wasn't near as good as, like, Civil War or whatever.
Yes, I did feel like the hand-to-hand was shot hard to follow. They did really fast cuts, and that is something that many filmmakers will do because when you're dealing with, like, visual effects and when you're dealing with all these factors and stuff, it's hard to get one take and do the whole thing, like fighting and stuff, and make it look real. You have to do, like, a little bit of it and then a little bit of it and a little bit of it and put it all together. So it was a little hard to follow in that respect, but the rest of it was amazing. So that kind of makes up for it.
It's good.
Impact on the rest of the MCU. This is my last kind of discussion topic.
All right.
So in the end credit scene, we see.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we find out that the time stone is indeed an Infinity Stone.
Words.
And then in the end credit scene, we find out Strange is gonna be in Thor 3
with some beer regenerating powers.
Some beer regenerating powers. Because that's a thing that Doctor Strange can do.
Exactly.
Is there a book on beer regeneration?
Oh. Here we go. Now that was cool to see. Always. I mean, it'll be cool to see how Doctor Strange and Thor clash together.
Yeah.
Because they both deal with more mystic realms.
Right.
Which is cool, and I feel like they work together well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's so cool how these movies are just colliding now. Like,
I know.
The MCU is no longer just solo movies. Like, we're just putting characters in, like, Falcons and Ant-Man, and Civil War happened, and now we're doing, Thor, or RDJ, Tony Stark is in Spider-Man Homecoming, and all this stuff, and that's great.
What I loved is, like, in the beginning of the MCU, of course they didn't have the Avengers and stuff, but they would barely even reference other superheroes in their universe. Yeah. But, like, in this one, I think it's. I mean, of course, in Doctor Strange, you see the Avengers Tower twice. You see in the very beginning, and then you see when in the mirror dimension or whatever. Yeah. And then, again, they reference the Avengers, which is just really cool to see that they're all in the same universe, So, done that. I mean, it's just so cool to see how far the MCU's come, to this point. Be able to tie in with all these different characters that we love, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So, it'll be fun to see Thor and Doctor Strange.
Well, and obviously, like, these Infinity Stones are pretty spread out right now. One is in Vision's head. One is in the Nova Corps security. One is in...
Where did the ones go with the Collector? 'Cause he had the one from Thor Ragnarok, right?
Right, so he was given that, but then his place
up.
exploded. Yeah, so the location of that one's unclear.
Tesseract, of course.
Tesseract is on Asgard.
Oh, the Tesseract. Is it?
It's on Asgard.
Because it took it back up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I like all these Infinity Stones are spread out between different like magic organizations.
Yeah.
And like he's gonna have to maybe the whole
Thanos
Infinity War will be
Thanos real job getting these
collecting
things.
them. Yeah.
Which I think I don't know if you're gonna mention this, but you mentioned how I guess we will when we get to the Mordo scene. You know how when you'd mentioned to me that it'd be cool to see Thanos use all these other villains, like Mordo and Red Skull and such as his own like minions,
Right. Instead of an army, he would have different advisors and
exactly. And it'd be cool. I just thought of this if like he told each one to go get one of the Infinity Stones, right? And so then like the Avengers have to protect them, Yeah. And they do different battles going on in different places.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Wouldn't that be amazing? Okay, you have one battle. The whole movie is just a bunch of different battles, or the Avengers all separate for the. Maybe that's how it happens. Maybe the entire movie is they're together, and then the third act they all separate and go their different ways to protect different Infinity Stones, and that's how their downfall happens. Yeah. That'd be cool. But you've got one battle going on Asgard, and you've got like Thor and some other people defending Thor and Ant-Man and Hulk defending the one there. Then you've got New York, the Sanctum Sanctorum, they're defending the Time Stone, and like maybe you got Jessica Jones, which would be amazing, and Daredevil and Doctor Strange and like Stark defending that one. And then you got Nova Corps, Guardians are defending that and stuff. It's amazing, so cool. Right? It'd be so cool. Yeah.
And if Thanos kind of like assigned a different villain to each one.
Exactly. So one group's fighting Red Skull, one group's fighting Mordo.
But not like what you expected.
Right.
So you wouldn't have like, of course, you wouldn't have like Red Skull fighting Captain America, but you could have like switch it up,
Exactly. Want to see these things collide. Yeah.
That'd be so cool. I'd love that.
It'd be really good. Yeah, so that would be great. Is there anything else that kind of directly connects to the MCU in this? Not a whole lot.
No.
Strange mentions, just before he gets in his car wreck, the person is listing like different cases to him for that he could be a doctor of, and he's like, nope. And one of them was Army colonel wounded who has a spine injury in experimental armor.
Oh.
And some people said maybe that's War Machine, because Army Colonel, spinal injury, experimental armor. Although the timeline doesn't quite match up for that. Or some people said maybe it's one of the guys from Justin Hammer's experiments in Iron Man 2 that he shows, exactly. Where the guy like breaks his back because it spins or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just a fun kind of. I like that this universe just has experimental armor and stuff, right? That's just a thing that people deal with, And that's really interesting to me that this universe has that as the norm now. So yeah.
Very nice.
It's very nice. Mordo, end credit scene, he's taken the rules a little too far. Yeah.
Has he though?
Is it good or bad?
Is he following the rules?
Exactly.
Is Doctor Strange being the bad guy?
See, but Jesus came to relieve us of the rules. So, because this is a complete, perfect Christian allegory.
For some reason, I knew Mordo was going to be bad.
Well, because he's bad in the comics.
Yeah, I hadn't read anything about him in the comics. So I had no clue what the character was. Or just something about him. I'm like,
something about him. He looks like Black Panther, bad, so he must be...
He must be a bad old chap.
Yeah, my dad turned to me in the theater and said, "Isn't that Black Panther?" And I was like, "Yeah, kind of looks like him."
Good point.
Yeah, that will be interesting. Again, I don't think Doctor Strange needs a sequel with Mordo as the villain. I would think it would be great to have him as a Thanos soldier or something.
Yeah, which I don't think... I mean, I think that's our best bet right now, because how can they pull together a Doctor Strange movie sequel before Infinity War?
Right, yeah, they won't.
It's coming... It's around the corner, so...
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see him in Infinity War.
Well, and like... Doctor Strange, again, is just like Ant-Man, I think, in that he's a great character, he's a great character, he needs an origin story movie.
Yeah.
But from this point onward, I do think he'll work a lot better as a team player. Not his own movie, Yeah. And it will be really cool to see all these different characters and their different cultures and like magic and powers and stuff all on the same screen. Also, really want to see the Scarlet Witch interact with him.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be
that'd
great?
Be cool.
That is
be cool. I haven't thought about that.
Like, Scarlet Witch gets her powers from an Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
She's not really channeling magic, though. It's more of, like, energy.
Yeah.
Right? But he's doing direct magic. So, that is one thing about just comic book universes in general, is they never quite line up as far as the different types of magic and whatever. It would have been really cool if, like, the magic that we see from the Tesseract in Avengers was exactly the same type as in this, but it just doesn't work that way. And it is cool that it's a wide universe with different types of magic going on, you know. So, not a whole lot to say about that, but there you go. That's Doctor Strange. How are we going to rank it, mate?
Out of 22?
Out of 22, our classic rating system.
Oh, let's see here.
I rated an 18 out of 22.
18.
Yeah?
I think about 18 for me, too.
Someone tell me what that is out of 10.
If you want to go real wacky, go 18.58.
Oh. Someone's going to have trouble with the calculator.
Good luck.
Yeah. I rank it,
overall,
as far as the MCU movies.
Yeah.
I think it's not as good as, like, the great MCU movies, right? Like, Guardians, Winter Soldier, Avengers, all the great ones. It's not as good as Civil War, but it's the best out of the not as great MCU movies, right? Like, I think it's the best of the solo movies.
The villain's the best out of the bad villains, and the movie's the best out of the bad movies. You know? It all kind of works.
Yeah. Although that said, none of Marvel's movies are that bad, so
good point.
It's still a compliment. You know, except
overall,
maybe Thor 2 is pretty
great
bad.
movie.
Yeah.
What'd you rank it? 6 on the list, I think?
Yeah, number 6.
Right.
So, Winter Soldier is number 1.
Pretty good.
Iron Man, Avengers, Guardians, Civil War, and then Doctor Strange is number 6. Yeah.
It's good.
There you go. That's Doctor Strange.
Jolly time.
If you haven't seen Doctor Strange, and you just listened to an entire hour-long spoiler discussion, shame on you.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
I think I'm going to hopefully go see it again sometime soonish.
Yeah, that'll be good.
To say. Yeah.
It's good to have a Marvel movie back.
It is good to have a Marvel movie back. We're gonna this whole month we've got lots of stuff to see. We've got Arrival is next week, then Fantastic Beasts, then Moana. It's great. It's great.
Nice.
Pick of the week, mate. Obviously, our pick of the week is Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, of
but,
course.
As mentioned a few minutes ago, I saw today Hacksaw Ridge, which was fantastic.
Hack that saw, man.
Hack that saw. Saw that.
What'd you think of that? What'd you think of that? Let's hear your rant on this.
It was fantastic.
Was it?
Again, a movie with Christian kind of values in it. In fact, not even values, like direct Christian stuff. If you didn't know, it's about a dude who is a Christian, and although it's not a Christian movie per se, it's a Mel Gibson film, so it's, good. Not like most Christian movies. But it's about Andrew Garfield plays a Christian soldier in the 40s who wants to enlist with the army, but he doesn't want to kill anybody or use a gun because he didn't want to, do that because the Bible says not to. Because he's that kind of guy. So
he doesn't know how to hold a gun.
So he basically saves lives on the battlefield, even enemy lives, instead of taking them. Really powerful movie. Whoa. It was like God's Not Dead if it were good meets if it were good. God's Not Dead if it were good meets Saving Private Ryan.
Okay.
And it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. And really anybody can appreciate it. Again, it's not really a Christian movie. It's just a movie with a Christian character. And so, I thought it was fantastic.
How'd Mr. Garfield do as his character?
He did
I was
great.
skeptical of him.
Absolutely great. Yeah.
Did he? Okay.
Andrew Garfield is really a great actor. He was great as Peter Parker. He's great in The Social Network. Okay. He's British and he does a good American accent. All that stuff. Yeah.
Cool. I have to go give that a watch.
Yeah.
Dang. Of course, Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
But I really didn't watch a whole lot this week. I did. I watched right after we recorded last week's podcast. I went and watched X-Men 2.
There you go.
United.
Yeah.
Of course, last week I had watched Days of Future Past, so I was feeling the X-Men vibe still. So I watched X2. Hadn't seen it in ages. A lot better than I remembered. A lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And Stryker as a villain. He's great.
Well, right, it is a fantastic. Like the mansion scene. It's got a lot of good moments, but not like Batman v Superman. It's actually a good movie in total.
Moments when moments are due.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
It was good. But yeah,
I love that
X-Men
the heroes
2,
aren't really heroes in that movie. Like they're just people trying to do the right thing. They're not like perfect or anything.
Yeah, that's good.
That's really cool.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, fantastic movie. Go give it a watch if you haven't.
All these movies mentioned are fantastic.
Give
them all a watch.
Except Suicide Squad at the very end.
Except Suicide Squad was mentioned, and that is not fantastic. All right. Where can people find us on the social medias?
I am at nerd_scream7 on Instagram and Twitter.
All right. I am
Check me out.
At Blockbusted Pod on Instagram and Twitter, as well as you can email us at blockbustedpodcast@yahoo.com. We are also sponsored by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com.
Or so we think.
Yeah. Don't get many emails from them anymore.
Yep.
Maybe they're ashamed of our bad sponsorship advertising.
Probably.
You can go to audibletrial.com/blockbusted for a free audiobook of your choice today. So that is pretty cool. Yeah. That's about it. Next week.
Yes, indeed.
I'll have seen Arrival.
Oh. Maybe I will. Who's to say?
Maybe I won't have, though. I think I'm going to wait until the matinee day.
Yeah.
After that. Next week, we had the idea of doing a magic episode, talking about different forms of magic in movies, right? Okay. Like Doctor Strange and Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and stuff.
Yeah. Kind of tie into that Fantastic Beast.
Yeah.
Segue there.
So that could be interesting. Yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. Say your catchphrase, Hitchcock.
It is the #wing it.
There you go. All right. What even is this, guys? We'll see you later. Oh, we got to say a cool Doctor Strange spell. Wands of Watumb.
No. I'm waving my hands, okay?
All right.
I'm conjuring that shield.
I'm drawing a cool fire circle in midair.
Yes.
Bye, guys.